with us for that. A reminder, I have two guests with me for the rest of the programme to offer their perspectives on the news of the day and indeed the week. And Dr. Chandrika Kaul, a professor in modern history at the University of St Andrews in Scotland, and Laurie Bristow, president of Hughes Hall, a college at Cambridge University and a former UK ambassador to Afghanistan and Russia. More from them throughout the course of the hour. And we begin with Russia, where authorities say a bomb blast at a restaurant in Moscow has killed 3 people and wounded 20 others. Reports quoting Russia's anti-terrorist committee say a woman tried to bring an improvised explosive device into the restaurant, which was hosting a private function and closed to the public. According to reports, a security guard at the entrance stopped the woman from entering, at which moment the bomb was detonated, killing the woman, the security guard, and a guest. An eyewitness spoke to Russian media.
When I came out, I saw people being led out. There were women dressed up, some of them barefoot, carrying their belongings and bags. There were men too. One man was still wearing a dress shirt, and he looked like he had come straight from work. I'm really not sure. It didn't look like a normal event. At one point, I even thought they might be evacuating the building. Everything was moving very quickly, but there was definitely no panic. There were cars, flowers, nothing seemed to be stopping people from driving in. I saw someone helping a woman into a car, while others were escorting people down the stairs towards the square. People really did seem confused. It looked like the birthday party of some general.
Meanwhile, in recent months, the Russian capital Moscow has become the target of ever-increasing number of drone attacks from Ukraine.
Maybe you shouldn't invade your neighbors, try to do genocide.
Our Russia editor,
Ordinary Russians need to wake the fuck up,
postcard, as we call them,
just like Americans need to.
You can sum
overthrow
up
Trump
the message
and
from Moscow right
Netanyahu.
now in just 2 words. Not turning.
Мы добьемся своих целей.
Not
И
turning.
вместе сделаем все для победы, для России.
President Putin has made it clear that he is not for turning. He shows no sign of compromise, apparently determined to
idiot.
continue fighting.
Let's overthrow
And
that
Russia's
idiot.
leadership insists that the tide is not turning in this
Oh, the
war
tide's
in
turned.
favor of Kiev. Whatever Western
But you haven't
politicians and
insisted.
commentators may be saying, one Russian newspaper this week
evidence on the
dismissed
ground is
their
showing.
claims as PR, as an attempt
Stop
by the West
invading your
to
country-
present
your neighbors.
appearance as reality. When I read that,
You'll find out when
how
your
ironic,
cities are on fire.
I thought. After all, ever since the full-scale Russian invasion of Ukraine,
Russia's
Russia
been lying about
has
it.
constructed and promoted an alternative reality that paints
Just like
the
they do
Russian
to the
army
Trump-Hooniers
not
in
as
America.
aggressor, but as liberator, in a war started not by Vladimir Putin, but by the West. Even if you accept that the tide in this war is not turning, clearly something is changing, and Russians can see that.
Because their cities are on fire, their wild berries are
They can
burning
see
down.
that Ukrainian drones have been attacking Russian oil refineries, one after another, sparking a summer petrol shortage across the country.
Good, fuck them.
And almost every day now, Russians wake up to news that drones have bombed warehouses of the online Russian retail giant Wildberries.
Good.
All of this
Fuck 'em.
is bringing Russia's war in Ukraine much closer to home.
That's what you
Nearly
get.
4.5 years
Overthrow your
after
evil
Vladimir
master.
Putin launched what he thought would be a short, successful military operation.
4 years of
If the
losing.
president is
Can't
not for
let
turning,
Trump lose against
what
Iran
is
for
he
4
planning?
years.
many Russians fear that he may announce
Yes,
another large-scale mobilization.
Nice to see
You
you
hear the
again.
rumors, the speculation. Nonsense. It's a lying provocation, declared Deputy Chairman of the Russian Security Council, Dmitry Medvedev, a few days ago. But those fears remain. Might President Putin turn to North Korea for more support, more troops, as he has done in the past?
Thousands of people from
Will
North
he
Korea and
step
got them
up
killed?
the hybrid shadow war that Western officials have long accused Russia of waging on the West through cyber attacks and acts of sabotage?
And Trump.
Will the Kremlin in some way try to test the unity of the NATO alliance?
Like he's
Would
attacked
the
us
Kremlin
through
leader
Trump.
ever use a nuclear weapon? In Russia, there are some hardline
Hopefully
commentators
aliens will
urging him
prevent
to
that
do
from
so.
happening.
I've lived and worked in Russia for many years. But truth is, I can't read Vladimir Putin's mind. I don't know what he'll do next. But I do know that not turning has a logical consequence. Expect escalation.
Run
And the
into a
Kremlin
wall.
will inevitably blame that on
Run
Ukraine
off a cliff.
and on the West.
Run off the
The
bridge.
BBC's Russia editor Steve Rosenberg for us there. Laurie, we heard a number of times in that analysis that the tide is not turning
I
in
want to hear
this
what the
war.
ambassador to
What's
Russia
your view on
and
that assessment?
Afghanistan has to say.
Well, I mean, Steve, I think, as always, has pretty much encapsulated the situation. I should start, though, just by making one very important point, which is that while Ukraine is targeting military and economic targets in Russia, Russia is targeting civilians. Things like accommodation blocks in Ukraine. There's a big difference between the two things. So, look, I mean, where we are in year 5 of the war is that Russia is now suffering some really serious setbacks. And Steve went through, the attacks on the oil refineries, the wild berries, chain store, which of course is being used to supply equipment and components for the war effort. There are also some quite big, propaganda blows that the Ukrainians have struck in the last, few months. Where we are, I think, is that the war is really starting to come home to Russia, to Russians, but also Russia isn't really making much progress on the battlefield. I mean, they're losing probably 30,000 men a month. They're managing to recruit, give or take 30,000 a month. What they're not doing is making any sort of breakthrough. So I think essentially what Putin's got is probably 3 broad options. One is to negotiate. I mean, negotiate with Trump, hoping that Trump will deliver the Ukrainians in a way that Putin's army hasn't been able to do so on the battlefield.
Trump's master.
Second is escalate in the hope of a breakthrough or a Ukrainian collapse.
You got to negotiate with people he
the West, particularly the Europeans, lose their nerve. The third is just grind on in the hope that something turns up, that Ukraine breaks before Russia does, and carry on losing 30,000 men a month. None of those strikes me as a very good option. But I think there are some other things coming into play now as well, of which probably the most important is the interaction with the war in Iran. So what we've seen in the last few days is that Ukraine wasn't able to shoot down any incoming Russian ballistic missiles. That's because the Americans aren't providing them with interceptors, missile interceptors, Patriots, and
Trump works for Putin.
Oil prices keep spiking up and down, as a result of the
Trump working for Putin.
The war in the Strait of Hormuz, the closure of the Hormuz. What we're also seeing is the emergence of a Russia-Iran axis on a number of fronts, with impacts on countries in the Gulf and beyond, of a war that they didn't want over
Putin's
Iran,
Trump's master, so
and a
Putin
war that they're looking at as not
war.
actually directly affecting their interests in Ukraine. For us, I think all the scenarios now are dangerous and expensive. I think what we're dealing now with is a conflict that will not resolve while Putin is alive. And so, we could be looking at a continuation of this for the next decade or more.
That dude ain't gonna be alive that long.
A ceasefire is achievable. I think, under the right circumstances, a ceasefire might be achievable. But if we're looking at how the underlying conflict resolves, I'm afraid it doesn't until Russia changes.
Chandra,
change Russia. You can overthrow Putin.
Point raised there by Laurie about Russia's growing relationship with Iran, but of course other relationships forming around the world are already established, which play into this as well.
Yes, if history teaches us anything,
Was she
is
the
that
ambassador
war
to
like
Russia,
this,
or
there
was
is
he?
no ideal solution. There are only uneasy compromises. And I think what the West is just not picking up is why Russia is managing to carry on. And that's because of the allies in the global South. We've got India, we've got China, and of course Iran.
He's murdering, kidnapping, and murdering your people too.
That actually have something to say. The West needs to talk to them much more directly if it's at all interested in bringing this, as Laurie said, in bringing this to an end sooner rather than
Stop
later.
getting your
We're going to
people
stay with the
killed.
subject of war because
1,000
living
a
through
day
conflict is
in Putin's
disorientating,
delusion.
even for the most aware and well-informed of adults. For children, it is often utterly devastating. Everything and everyone they thought of as safe and dependable can no longer be relied upon, and they can't understand why. A chance to get a deeper insight into that childhood experience of war is available later this week at the Imperial War Museum in London via a new exhibition. Childhood in War takes visitors from 1914 to the present day via personal stories, but also via displays like an evacuee train carriage from World War II or a Cold War era kitchen. We brought together 3 people from different generations to reflect upon their own experiences. Lida Chechel, a teenager in Ukraine, Samira Hamidi, who fled Afghanistan with her family in the 1990s, and John Hajdu, whose childhood was spent in Budapest during the Second World War. His teddy bear is part of that exhibition, and Weekend's Julian Warwicker began by asking him about it.
Teddy has been with me since I was about 3 years old. I was born in April 1937 in Budapest, Hungary, into a well-to-do Jewish family, and we lived a comfortable and peaceful life. In 1941, Hungary entered the war, allied to Nazi Germany, and in a very short time, everything changed. From that time on, anti-Semitism took hold. My father had to go to live in a forced labor camp in 1943, and that's when my mother had to look after me on her own, when I was just 6 years old. All this time, I had Teddy with me. The next step was the 15th of June 1944, when we were ordered to leave our home and move into a yellow star house. And all we could take is what we could carry. And again, Teddy was with me in my pocket. Eventually, I was moved into the ghetto, and then I lived there with my aunt, because in the meantime, my mother was taken to Mauthausen concentration camp.
So you took Teddy with you, and Teddy was what, a sort of a figure that you kept in your pocket?
Yes, I kept it in my pocket because that really was the only thing connecting me to my happy life with a happy family. We lived in the ghetto for some time, which was a very, very nasty situation. There was nobody to play with, and I had nothing, no toys of any kind apart from Teddy.
Samira, you're listening to John's story from the point of view of somebody who escaped the civil war in Afghanistan with your family. You were a child, this was in 1992, and fled to Pakistan, and your story appears at this exhibition via a video. Tell us a bit about that childhood experience as you remember it.
Basically, I grew up a huge part of my life being always worried about the war that was happening in Afghanistan. We belonged to a middle-class family. My parents were both working in Afghanistan. So I remember it was always a struggle for my parents to make sure that they continue with their jobs, because they have no choice. They had to earn. It was me and my 4 other siblings. And at the same time, to make sure that, somehow we are safe.
When you fled to Pakistan, going back to John's story, did you have to leave lots of things behind?
We had to leave literally everything. I think 2 or 3 blankets, a few pieces of clothes, and that's it.
Lisa, I want to bring you in because you are living through a war now, because you're speaking to us from Ukraine. I'm told that you've been displaced twice as a result of this war at various different points over the last few years. Just tell us some of the experiences that you've lived through.
First time it was in 2014 when I was 5 years old only, and I wasn't actually struggling a lot from the situation because I didn't understand really anything what's happening. The only thing that made me sad, that made me crying, is that when we were leaving our house really in a hurry, in a rush, so we were packing up our things, my mom said to me to leave several of my favorite toys because unfortunately we weren't allowed as well to take a lot of things with us, and there were more essential things to take. So that was the only thing that made me cry. But luckily, during this period from 2014 to 2022, I was leading a totally normal life in Kharkiv. My parents were working in their own apartment, and in this apartment was only 1 room up to I turned 12 years old. And then parents finally bought our own on the suburbs of the Kharkiv, where I finally got my own room, my own freedom of action. I spent there only 2 months because after 2 months, the full-scale invasion started, and it fully ended my childhood. I would say completely ended.
That's an interesting observation. It fully ended my childhood. I wonder whether, as a result of living through what you have, that you almost feel as if there is an element of lost childhood here for you.
It's definitely so, because in one day I had to be an adult. Like, I was already a teenager. I was no longer a kid anymore. I was 12 years old, and I fully realized everything what is happening. And when war hits your life, it literally narrows down to worrying about existence.
Samira, when you look back to what happened to you in Afghanistan and then Pakistan, do you recognize that notion of you almost having to grow into an adult before you would have ideally wanted to, before you were ready to, perhaps?
Absolutely. This is such an important question and observation because, we had to accompany our parents for making difficult choices. We had to accept that, this is how the life is. For example, living in Pakistan, because I had seen the struggle, we had fled the war, we had seen so much in our life that I wanted to help my parents. And I always say that, I aged way early as compared to how old I was and what responsibilities I decided to take at that time.
John, can I come back to you finally, because you've heard these two stories from Samira and Lisa. Do you recognize that notion of a lost childhood?
Looking back, I will always remember the loss of family, the loss of safety, not knowing what's happening to me. But the important thing is that after I escaped from Hungary, through the Austrian border, I still have Teddy with me, and Teddy is still sitting on my desk, and I look at him every day, and it reminds me of what happened to me.
Lisa, Samira and John in conversation with the BBC's Julian Warwicker.
Anyway, nice to see you, Vendetta. Nice to see you, Crystal. Thank y'all for being here. I was just listening to that. I was going to shut it down a while ago, but that was a good report.
So. Cities under the highest alert from tomorrow as it gets ready for a fourth heat wave. It's a similar tale across Europe.
Got to blame Trump and Putin and Netanyahu and the oil companies
across the continent, according to the
all
EU's
the
forest
climate change.
There have already been 1,200 fires across Europe so far, double the annual average. The heat has also caused widespread water and electricity shortages in North Africa, specifically in Tunisia and Libya. More on that in a moment. But for now, let's speak to Dr. Karl Friedrich Schleusner, who is a climate scientist at the International Institute for Applied Systems Analysis, which is an independent, non-governmental research institute near Vienna. Welcome. Good to have your expertise on. We have seen devastating floods, heat waves, wildfires.
Oh, thanks. I'm glad you like that.
This summer, how confidently can scientists say that climate change is making these events likely or more severe?
Well, a very good morning, good day from my side. And
I'm so glad you're reading my book.
Excellent question.
Thanks.
I think what we are seeing
the book is The Little Book of Judas by Andrew Harris.
That's unfolding all over the world.
Thank you.
We are approaching, or we have warmed the planet since the pre-industrial conditions by around 1.4 degrees Celsius.
The idea is that childhood and heaven are the same thing.
On all events in different ways.
Not having a lost childhood is how you make more heaven on earth.
We are seeing events like the June heat wave in Europe that would have been unprecedented. So they wouldn't have happened without human-made climate change. And we see the fingerprints on climate change on events around the world, be it flash floods, drought events, but also the intensity of rain related.
I'm glad you're enjoying the book.
You describe this as a new climate.
Thanks so much for reading it and getting it.
What makes this summer different from the extreme?
You're one of the first people in the world to read it, so I'm super excited.
It's a continuation of what we've seen before.
You got up the message in a couple of Christian channels? Awesome, thank you. Hope somebody gets the message.
And be warming the planet at a record rate of more than a quarter of the
great if my book started selling.
And so
I didn't have to work.
We are increasing the odds of also
keep writing
seeing
books.
record-breaking extreme events. And unfortunately, this year is not over yet, and we see a new El Nino event forming, out of which our predictions are saying it might be one of the strongest, if not the strongest, we've ever seen. And this El Nino event will cause potentially another series of very extreme events all over the tropics.
At least they're talking about taxing the oil companies over their record windfall profits.
Could look mild by 2050. I mean, what does that future look like if governments fail to cut emissions?
You got to do something.
Well,
only one was open enough to the goddess. Well, start somewhere though. That's awesome.
By the end of the century, that's twice as much as we've warmed the planet already today.
Thanks for trying them. I mean, even if they weren't open to it, the idea is there. Like the seed has been planted.
Climate conditions that we fail to handle.
Thank you.
They're exceeding our capacity to adapt. They're exceeding the capacity of our
I just believe the goddess is real. It's been
but also the ecosystems that surround
the way it is, but hidden. The system is designed to block the goddess. But the goddess is real and will emerge.
We need to get very serious about climate action and bring emissions down as fast as possible on a race to net zero to stop climate change.
Well, and on that clear warning, Dr. Schleusner, thank you for joining us here on Weekend. As mentioned, the heat wave is widely.
I might go live later, but I'm going to go in now because I'll just listen to the radio.
Campaigners say
so good to see you. Thank you. Enjoy the book.
Temperatures, and among those
see you next time.
Is 85-year-old Rashid Ghanouchi, the leader of the opposition Ennahda party and one of Tunisia's most prominent political prisoners. prisoners. He's been hospitalized several times in recent weeks. His daughter, Yusra Ghanouchi, joins me now. Yusra, what do you understand to be your father's condition at the moment?
Good morning. Unfortunately, we don't really have any clear information, and that's the problem. So my father,
like we don't have any information about the person with tuberculosis in the ICE kidnapping concentration camps here in Colorado.
The last time he was there for 11 days, from Friday, 17th of July. And during that time, I mean, we only heard that he was taken to hospital because a lawyer who was visiting her father in prison witnessed my father collapsing from the extreme heat in prison. After that, he was kept in hospital for over 11 days without any access to lawyers or visits from family. And he was completely isolated, and we were very concerned about his well-being, particularly because there were alarming reports circulating about him being in intensive care and having had a stroke. So we were very worried, but still the authorities refused to give us any updates or any medical records or results. And this now has been repeated. So on Monday, he was taken to hospital again, and since then,
that's like 2 months.
Family and lawyers have tried to visit him and have been refused access.
Okay, and very,
Mitch McConnell's
very
dead.
briefly,
They're
the
hiding the
conditions
death
in the
for,
prison
like,
because of the
3
heat. So
weeks
he's
or
one of many
4 months or
prisoners. What
something.
do you understand them to be? 20
I
seconds.
think they're only supposed to hide it for 3 more days though, because then
There's
they
poor
meet their goal or
ventilation in
whatever.
prison, no air conditioning. The prisoners are kept in their cells for over 22 hours in very difficult conditions, and this applies to my father and many other political
Again, sounds like
prisoners.
the ICE
And these prisoners
concentration
have been there
camps
for
here in
over
America.
3 years, simply for defending democracy in Tunisia and demanding a return to democracy.
Why is this the first we've heard of it?
Yusra Ghanouchi, thank you for joining us. We
Nobody else
did
was
try
reporting
to
on that
contact
at
the
all.
Tunisian government for a response, but have not managed to get a reply as yet. You're listening to Weekend.
Okay, I think I'm gonna shut it down though, because I gotta go in. We'll see y'all later.
BBC World Service is made possible by America.